All right, guys, today's date, what is it? 8/25. Let's put today's date up here just so we remember. 8/25/25. Unit 0, day 2. We're almost at Unit 1, and then we get to the really fun stuff. We actually get into the Old Testament. So we're almost there, but for now, we're right here, and we have to talk about a few things and how they frame things. All right, last class, you can look at your notes here. What are the two major things that started happening in 597 BC? Does anybody remember? Just shout it out. What happened in 597? Was that? Exile. Yes. Exile, right? In 597, Babylonian exile happens. And in 586, so after exile has begun, during exile, and guys, if I give a date in this class, just assume it's BCE, before Common Era. The Temple of Solomon is destroyed. If I wrote it on the board, definitely, yes. I'll just say it a whole bunch. All right, 586 BCE. 586, the Temple of Solomon is destroyed. 586, the Temple of Solomon is destroyed. Now, the temple is the center of Israelite culture. See, the Israelites are the ancient people of the Old Testament, right? The ancient Jews are called Israelites. We'll talk about them more, but their center of culture is there. Now, this is the conversation I made Miss Dunn have with, or I thought about making Miss Dunn have with me. I made Miss Hine have with me. Is there anybody in here who feels particularly strongly attached to their heritage? Who says, I'm very strongly attached to my heritage. I think it's important to remember who I am. Anybody? Nobody in here? Okay, I see a few of you. So, how would, those of you that raise your hand, how would you feel if I said you're no longer allowed to have that heritage? From now on, you have to, Brooklyn, I'm going to pick on you a little bit, okay? I'm going to say Brooklyn has to get rid of her braids and straighten her hair, and we're going to change her name from Brooklyn, and we're going to change it to Amanda, and make her, and Amanda, Amanda now, what is your favorite food? Chicken? Okay, yeah, but we're going to make it blander and whiter. How about that? We're just going to make everything white, so you have to blend in exactly to society without liking anything that makes you stand out. How would you feel about that? You'd be mad. You'd probably call me some mean names, right? If I said from now on in this class, no Spanish is allowed to be spoken, how would we feel about that one? Maybe it doesn't affect Brooklyn as much, right? But it's certain, and it wouldn't affect me. What if I start saying, guys, you can't eat elote, no more elote. You just get what? What's wrong with that? How I pronounced it? It was just terrible. All right, guys, if I start taking all the things from your culture away, we're going to get pretty mad, right? You're going to be justifiably angry. If I start saying your name has to be changed, you're going to start being pretty mad at me.
Hello?
Hello?
May I please have Ariana Rivera to the main office?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, here's why I say this. If I took the most central parts of your identity, the things that make you stand out as who you are, and I removed them from you, but then at the end of the day, I still said, oh, but you're actually not part of my culture. I'm still going to keep you separate, right? I'm still going to say, maybe you're not white enough, is the term that I've used for people, right? I would say, you're not white enough to actually be a real American, but we're going to take all the things that make you you away from you. Anybody happy with that? Anybody okay with doing that? No, I wouldn't think so, right? It's forced assimilation. So here's the thing. This is what is happening here. In 586, Babylon destroys the temple and says, you're now part of our nation, and you are a lesser people group. So that is what's shaping the Bible, and I want us to understand that as I've talked last class, this is the thing that's going to shape the Bible. So your stories are probably going to start changing to be shaped around this, right? The feeling that we have when I, as the one white person in this room, aware of what I look like as a bald white man, right? I know what I look like. I know what you guys, what experiences some people have. And as it's uncomfortable that I'm standing here saying oh, what if I took your ethnic heritage from you and made you assimilate to make me happy, to make me comfortable? That's what's happening to the authors of the Bible, to the people that are putting the Bible together. The people in the Bible that are witnessing this are experiencing this. So this is a framework that we're going to try to carry with us. This awkward, heavy feeling is something we're going to have as we study these stories. All right? And here's why I say, as I've said, temple is super important. Temple is the center of Jewish culture or Jewish identity. The center of Jewish identity is the temple. There is nothing more important for an ancient Jew than the temple. This is the thing that makes them stand out and say, this is who I am. This is who we are. So when that's destroyed, it's a big deal. Right? This is the very center of their culture. Because for ancient people, something we should grasp, something that's important to know, for ancient people, the temple is literally the house of God, right? And I don't mean that like, oh, this is where we go to worship like we say it was church. When I say they believed it was the house of God, for ancient people, they believed that their gods literally physically lived there. That their gods had an actual presence, an actual body sometimes, and lived there as their house. That if they didn't have a temple, what was that God now? God was homeless, right? If it got destroyed, the God is homeless. So if Israel has the one and only Yahweh God's temple in their nation, they're going to feel important. Just like if Giannis chose to come live in your house, right, and decided, I'm going to go over and live at your house, or whoever your favorite football, soccer player, whoever is, you'd feel important, right? This is that cranked up to 10. This is that way higher. So, it's very important. But when Babylon destroys it, they lose their identity, right? They're going to lose their identity. They're going to lose their culture. They're losing a few things. Their identity. They lose their culture. They're going to lose their physical place. They get picked up, literally moved and transported all over the nation of Babylon, all over the kingdom, and told, you go here now, you're part of this group, you are there, you are enslaved. And as we talked about last class, what else happens? Boys, do we all remember what happens to the men? What happens? Yeah, they're gonna take rocks, smash their bodies up, right? Destroy their testicles, and say, you lose control of your personhood, right? You're no longer a person. It's destruction of the body, right?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, can you please send Brooklyn to the high school office for a moment?
Yep. So,
thank you.
Thank you. So it is total destruction of the body, of the identity of the person. Right? The thing that happens there is a sense of total chaos for the ancient Israelites. And so we move from oral transmission. Who knows what oral transmission is? Anybody? All right. These stories that we're going to walk through this semester, some of them had been written down previously, but for the most part, it was an oral transmission or an oral tradition. Who knows what this is? Anybody? It's not just how the MRSA virus is spread in high school and college, right? Oral transmission is telling of stories from one person to another, right? It's me telling Yvonne a story about my advisory, and then Yvonne going and telling somebody, Ismael, about what he missed in advisory that day. So then Ismael's going to go tell somebody else. Now, is any one of us going to tell the story the same way? No, right? The stories are going to be different. Why is that? Because we all have a different purpose. We all have a different recollection, right? We all care more about different details. But suddenly when it's written transmission, so actually written down, printed, they start writing it down, suddenly they have to come up with a few different things that they want to emphasize, right? It's no longer we can emphasize it on the fly, we can change as we go. It's now we have to take these traditions, that if I'm hearing it from one guy and then from another guy, I'm going to mash these traditions together as I write them down. So I might have all those different ways of telling the story, right? We talked through myth, which is not fake, right? Myth means a genre of cosmic metaphors, all the way to history. But we're in addition to that, we're going to have 3 major story archetypes. I want to walk us through these and give some examples. Here's our first one. Now, I want to say this. These story archetypes are going to exist, whether it's myth, mytho-history, or pure history. These will exist, but I'm going to call this one, well, I'll just say origin stories. All right, origin stories. Beginning. All right. The author focuses on the beginning of a person or a nation. Right? The beginning of a person or nation is here. The best example that I would have of this would be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. What is the most important part of that story? What's the point of that movie?
Getting back home.
Getting back home, and it's about Miles Morales, right? Does it matter if Doc Ock is male or female in that story? No. Does it matter really, does it really matter which villains Spider-Man's fighting? No, you can probably swap out his villains, right? What matters is Miles Morales' beginning and how he reacts to becoming Spider-Man, right? It's an origin story. The point, the author's focus, what they care about is the beginning of a person or the beginning of a nation. We're going to see this one quite a bit. And the thing is, if I think that it's this and I see details, I'm going to notice those details more. But it might actually be something else. Sometimes it could look like one, it could be another. All right, we're going to see this one a lot. I want to say this. This is a term I came up with. Law and order, myth of law and order, or stories of law and order. There is a term that covers both of these, but we're going to separate them into 2 for this class. This one makes a lot more sense than the other term, I think, and then combining them. Law and order. Can we guess what this one's about? Anybody? All right. Explanation of why we do certain things or traditions. This could be the folklore, right? A lot of our folklore that's going to say, oh, if you don't do this, you're going to get hurt. In my house, one of our foster kids asked me very early on of joining us. He said, oh, I'm about to lose a tooth. Is the tooth fairy going to come? And I didn't know that he had heard from around here, I guess. Is there, some of you guys have like a tooth rat? Have you talked about that? Am I right with that? What is it called? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Instead of a mouse, it's like a mouse or a rat instead of a tooth fairy. The tooth fairy is a rat for some people, some cultures. I guess he and my wife had talked about this. I don't know. I hadn't heard of that. So he walked up and he goes, is the tooth fairy or the tooth rat going to show up? Well, being the funny guy that I am, I immediately said, oh, the tooth rat's showing up. I didn't know what he was talking about, so I came up with a great version of it. For me, the tooth rat, from what I understood, the tooth rat is basically some guy from New Jersey that he goes, hey, wait, I'm a tooth rat. I'm the tooth rat. I'm going to take your teeth, right? He talks with this thick New Jersey accent. He's like a Guido, right? He's one of those Jersey Shore kind of guys. He's trying to find Snooki, right? It's one of these Jersey Shore. Does anybody know what I'm talking about, or is this just the most dated reference? You know Jersey Shore? No? Oh, man. Lucky you. All right, anyways, the tooth rat showed up to our house and left him a note and some loose change, because he doesn't give actual dollar bills. He gives loose change, and he leaves raisins all over the bed, which we then refer to as rat poop, right? And he's now been our reason for, if you don't brush your teeth every night, then the tooth rat shows up, because he likes to eat rotten teeth. So if you want the tooth rat instead of the tooth fairy, you leave rotten teeth. If you want the tooth fairy instead of the tooth rat, what do you got to do? You got to brush your teeth, right? It's our way. It's our law and order. if you don't do this thing happens. Right? It's a way of giving an explanation. Maybe it's a little mythical. When Janiyah gets back, you can go. All right, so it's a weird mythical explanation, right? It's not all going to be like that. All right, here's our last one. This is the one that the Bible department speaks against me all the time. You guys have heard some of these already. All right, against a person, a place, or an idea. This is something that is specifically crafted to be against. Can we read this? A person, against a person, a place, or an idea. A person, a place, or an idea. Right? It's made to speak ill, made to talk poorly on somebody, to say they have failed. Or maybe the idea is not good enough. Maybe the nation is not good enough. Maybe you just don't like that location. Right? It's any one of those. A polemic, this is the word for it. Polemic. Polemic. I realized that I didn't give you that word first. I gave you the definition, not the word. Polemic. Polemic. Now here's the thing. Stories can jump around between any of these three. You could make a story to be any one of these without it actually fitting necessarily. Here's one. I'm going to give an example. I want you guys to tell me if this is myth, history, folklore, whatever, right? We're going to do that first, and then we'll give which one of these this fits into. So on our myth to history diagram, this story. This school does not allow you to ride a unicycle at the school. As a rule, you cannot use a unicycle, whether in a talent show or just for fun. You're no longer allowed to ride a unicycle. The reason being because there once was a teacher that worked here for about a month, maybe a month and a half, and then was riding the unicycle around the track with some students and ended up falling and destroying both their ACL, MCL, and meniscus in one of their knees, blowing their entire knee out, similar to a football player. So therefore, you're not allowed to ride a unicycle at the school anymore. All right, where does that fall? Myth, history, or where else? Where do we think? Somebody shout it out.
Myth.
I think it's myth. What else do we think it could be? Shout it out.
Mytho.
Mytho-history. Anybody got another one? All right, why do we think mytho-history?
Actual historical events with added myth elements. So
Okay, what's been added to it, you think?
The ACL and all that.
The ACL and all that, it's exaggerated. Do you think it's myth? Think it just didn't happen at all?
I think it's folklore.
Maybe it's folklore, it's just kind of exaggerated. Which one of these do we think it is? Do we think it's an origin story, a polemic, or a law and order? Law and order, right? It's the explanation for a law. Now I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys, this is part of the point of this. It could sound like one thing, and you have to guess. You don't know for certain, because you don't know the details of the story or anything like that, right? This is the first time you've heard it. Guess what? That was me, and that's a real story. I actually blew my knee out completely because I was riding my unicycle around the track. That's true. I did that. So just so happens that you guys have the goofball unicycle teacher, right?
What does it look like? What does it look
A unicycle?
No. How do you do it?
Like I fell off my unicycle and broke my ACL, MCL, and meniscus. So everything, all the big tendons in my knee, I destroyed all in one go. Right in time for summer too. It was like 3 weeks before summer. I had worked here for about a month and a half, and then cost them insurance premiums. It was awesome.
This?
It's really great. What?
When was this?
About 3 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago. All right. So those are some of our examples, right? Now, we still have, let's see, Janiyah's still out. I'll give one more example. How about this example? When my wife and I were in school, when I was in grad school, my wife and I wanted to sail across the Gulf of Mexico from New Orleans to the Florida Keys. So we lived on a sailboat. We were pretty good sailors. I had hair so good that you would know God blessed me because of my hair, right? You would look at my hair; it was so great. You would say God has truly blessed him. So as we were sailing across the Gulf of Mexico, we were about to leave, get further out into the Gulf, and we started seeing a big storm. It ended up being so big, so historic, that it flooded parts of Miami. It flooded other cities. But as we were going out, we were like pretty confident we could handle a lot of it. We started seeing dolphins playing around with us. So there's dolphins, right? It's like God is providing for us. He's protecting us. We felt really good. But we got further and further out, and we were in waves that were about 16 to 20 feet. So literally as tall as a house, these waves. And finally realized we may not be able to do this. We need to go back into land, get to safety, and be fine. So we looked at our charts written by, now here's the thing, the charts are written by the government. Right, the government wrote these charts and they created them, and they're supposed to be reliable to tell us how deep the water is. Our boat sits 5 feet below the surface at its deepest, and the chart said it would be 10 feet deep as we were going to cross. Right, we're going to go across a sandbar that was supposed to be 10 feet deep below us. The government chart said these are really good, so we relied on that because everybody can always trust the government and everything. So we decided we could rely on this. Now, we ended up getting into 2 feet deep water and running aground and getting in a shipwreck. So our ship broke, parts of it fell apart, and we had to get rescued. The Coast Guard was supposed to rescue us, but guess what they couldn't do either? Get to us. They kept running aground because they also were part of the government and were not listening to us in what was going to happen. All right, what is this story? What do we think? Myth, history, whatever. What do we think? All right, why myth or history? It's what's been exaggerated. The dolphins and stuff. What else? All right. Yeah, what else? What do you think? Anybody? So this one, yeah, I would probably mytho-history, right? I did have good hair, but I wouldn't say that it was so good it would let you know God's protecting me, right? We did see dolphins. They were awesome, but they weren't that, like, they weren't going too crazy. We saw them. They were jumping around with us for about 4 or 5 hours, right? Now, where does it fall in here? Origin, Law and Order, or polemic? Where do we think?
Polemic?
Why?
Because it's at the end, it's kind of against the government.
Yeah, it becomes against the government, right? It speaks about how their organization is bad, how they failed, right? I've started speaking against somebody with this. Good catch on that, right? These details are the things we need to notice. We go, this seems a little exaggerated. Here's why. They seem to have reshaped it just so that they can talk bad on the government or something else. So,